Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week I predicted the number 1 would be Mean Girls, number 2 would be The Beekeeper, number 3 would be Wonka, number 4 would be Anyone But You, and number 5 would be Migration. And if you remember correctly, I predicted this top 5 specifically with no new releases because I figured with nothing really that big releasing too wide and with too much publicity, it'll probably be about the same top 5. And technically, I was right in the sense that I got the movies right, but the order shifted a little bit, which I guess was to be a little bit expected. I did only get 1 out of 1 out of 5 of my predictions right, and it's like smack dab in the middle. So 1 and 2 flip-flopped, and 4 and 5 flip-flopped, which is very interesting, but kind of to be expected. All of these numbers also, because of how low the returns are this weekend, are very close together. So when official numbers come out Monday, maybe some of these swap around, but this will be good enough. So number 1, as it turns out, was not Mean Girls. It was The Beekeeper, squeaking ahead just a little bit. I guess, with the fact that Mean Girls, there was a little bit of a backlash, not too much of a backlash, but there was a little bit of a, vibe coming out of some theaters where people were like, oh, I didn't know that was a musical, and some people kind of had a different headspace coming out of it as opposed to if they maybe knew beforehand. And I think that word of mouth kind of carried, so it was enough to get them another number 1 at the box office last weekend. But with this one, I think when it came to these very close numbers, The Beekeeper being able to squeak above probably had more to do with the Mean Girls reception, and The Beekeeper just being one that was like, hey, did you see that? Oh, it was kind of fun, just a thing to pass the time. And I think that kind of word of mouth is better than, you better go in, expecting a musical, because that's not what they're marketing it as. Anyways, I don't know if any of that made any sense. Hopefully it did. But it made $7.4 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $42 million. For David Ayer, it is outgrossed End of Watch by $1 million. Now it needs $43 million until it catches up to Fury. Worldwide, it is sitting at $86 million, so that is $29 million over End of Watch and $21 million over Street Kings. Now needs $124 million until Fury. So it's right behind, it's in his top 3 highest grossing films domestically and worldwide. There's that at least. I don't think it has enough momentum to catch up to Fury, and especially not Suicide Squad in this case. But still, I'm hoping that this budget is relatively low, because the way this movie is kind of kept around and continue to add on, this is definitely, it's one of Jason Statham's highest grossing strictly action films. I'm not really counting the Meg, because that's a bit more sci-fi, but like compare this to Expendables or Operation Fortune, it's like, yeah, Jason Statham's had a bit of a rough go, so this is a little better for him. And hopefully the budget is low, so that, hopefully this 86 mil shows that it has doubled whatever low budget it has. If it's higher, then shit, I don't know, man. But maybe one day they'll release a budget for this thing, because it seems like it's doing all right, like a pretty modest action hit. Maybe we will get The Beekeeper 2 after all. Anyways, going into number 2, we have Mean Girls making $7.3 million. So like I said, pretty close. But what I said before, I think just the general reception would have led to this kind of outcome of The Beekeeper switching above anyways. It adds to a domestic total of $60 million, so it still needs $26 million until it outgrosses the original film. Worldwide, it is sitting at $76 million, so it's $54 million away from the original, but it has now officially doubled its $36 million budget, made $4 million over that doubling point. It needs $108 million to triple. In general, making $100 million worldwide would probably look pretty good, and I'm not sure if this momentum is going to maintain that, because I know it's been pretty dry this latter half of January, but man, next week I think after Argylle, Madam Web is sure to follow, so the other blockbusters will come in to clean up a little bit in February, so we will see if Mean Girls can keep that momentum next week. But still, the fact that they doubled it is pretty solid, even though they did have to lie to their audience to get them in, and left some of them disappointed. Anyways, number 3 is Wonka, making $5.9 million, adding to a domestic total of $195 million. Domestically, it is still $11 million away from the Johnny Depp Wonka one. If it's still able to be here in the next couple weeks, I know it's about to be released on premium video on demand this Tuesday, the 30th, so if you want to watch it at home, you can. but maybe if it sticks around in the domestic box office for a little bit more, maybe it will make that necessary 11 million to squeak by. I mean, if it makes 5 million more, which it obviously will, it will get to 200 million domestically. So that's pretty fantastic in and of itself, you know. And I checked, it's not going to be released on Blu-ray DVD until like the end of February. So there's still some time where people may be like, oh, maybe I'll hold off on premium video. Maybe I will just go see it. Maybe. I don't know if that's what people think. Worldwide, though, it is sitting at $552 million. So there you go. I really don't have much more else to add here other than yeah, this is a good success. And any other film and any other time early on, I'd be like, oh, why you got to announce the streaming rentals already? But this movie's already kind of made bank, so it's slowed down enough where it's like now would be the appropriate time to kind of start, you know, pumping this news out, you know what I mean? So good on Wonka. Moving on to number 4, which is Migration, making 5.1 million, adding to a domestic total of 101 million. It is still 7 million behind Hop domestically. It is nearing closer. Worldwide, it is sitting at $206 million, so it's still behind the Lorax by 145 million, so it's still a long ways to go there. It's still going to end its run, I'm pretty sure, as one of Illumination's lower grossing films, but if it gets to 216 million, so if it makes 10 million more dollars in these next couple weeks, it will triple its $72 million budget, and tripling that budget is pretty damn good if you ask me. So even if it is one of their lower grossing ones, you know, the fact that it still is able to make a profit, that will be good for them. And, you know, the fact that it opened up and it was kind of looking like, ugh, no one's seeing this, to, okay, some people have, and it's not one of their biggest ones because, you know, Illumination is so big now, you know, Despicable Me is their big brand, or the Mario, they made the Mario movie, that's their big brand now. Something like Migration just kind of sticks out, I guess, but hopefully this isn't the end of them trying to do other original films, because I was honestly kind of surprised by this one. I went in not expecting much, and it's not like an amazing movie, but it was a solid fun time. It's definitely like a more like competent film as far as like their storytelling than some of their other ones. I think that's one of the big things about Illumination with me, is just their storytelling is just very like, obviously, like they've just thought of like every market they're trying to appeal to, every kid, like, okay, what is this character going to do that's fun, that's funny, what kind of gags? Like, it doesn't feel like organic storytelling. It just feels like people in a boardroom trying to figure out like TV subplots. And Migration is a little bit better than than those ones, you know what I mean? Anyways, sorry, that's like, I should save those kind of opinions for like an actual review. Nah, I don't give a shit. Anyways, number 5 is Anyone But You, making 4.8 million, adding to a domestic total of 71 million. So for Will Gluck, it is 14 million away from Annie worldwide. The way this movie's been bouncing up, it made $126 million. So it is 13 million behind Annie, but now, because the budget was $25 million, it has made 5 times that budget by crossing 125 million here. So Jesus Christ, I mean, there it goes to show you, you know, keep the budgets low, and if you market it well, and if you release it at a solid time where word of mouth can spread, and you don't just dump it on streaming right away, if you don't give up on something, you could have a solid hit. And here you are, here are the results. You know, if they make another 24 million right now, then they can make 6 times that budget. You know, maybe they will. You know, the momentum has been here. It's kind of crazy. Number 6, we have Fighter, a movie that I know nothing about. The budget is 250 crores, so hopefully this number that it made here is decent enough for American currency. It made 3.6 million this weekend, so I don't know anything about this movie other than the picture that I'm showing right here. Congrats. Moving on to number 7 is Poor Things. This movie was actually fluctuating, like it was in the top 10, it was out, it was in, and now because of the Oscar nominations and just general word of mouth, here it is a little bit higher up, making 3.04 million, adding to a domestic total of 24 million. For Yorgos Lanthimos, it is 10 million away from The Favorite, and then worldwide, now that it's sitting at 38 million, it is 57 million away from The Favorite. Interestingly enough, it has crossed over the initial production budget by 3 million now. And if it gets to 70 million in this run, you know, it's doubled it, and you can count that as success. Not that, you know, this movie doubling its budget will guarantee Yorgos' next film, because Yorgos has already shot his next film and is already talking about making his next film. So his career isn't slowing down or anything. It would just be cool to see. And I don't think, like, when the Oscars come, it'll be the one that people just, like, forget about or shut out. You know, I think people will still be thinking about it. I think word of mouth will spread on this, like, oh, what is this movie that's nominated? People are saying it's kind of crazy. What is that? You know, and then I just think we might have a good solid hit here, and maybe, if it doesn't double its budget here, then, maybe once it hits like DVD Blu-ray sales, that'll be like through the roof because the word of mouth has already spread so much. I think it's, destined to be a classic. It's that good. Number 8, we have American Fiction, another one of the Best Picture nominees, Oscar nominees that are here, rising up into the top 10 and limited release for a bit, and it's expanded enough for this now, making $2.89 million, which adds to a domestic total of $11.8 million. I'm going to imagine this movie wasn't too expensive because it's very much so like a comedy. It's not like a big budget, there's a sci-fi twist to it or anything like that. It's got some named actors in there, but I don't think the budget is too high on this thing. So I don't think 11.8 million necessarily covers it all, but I just don't have a budget listed. Either way, similar to Poor Things, I think this movie, if it gets talked about enough, people won't forget about it come the award season. And if it doesn't make its money back in the theater, hopefully later on when it's released on DVD and Blu-ray, or just on streaming where you can rent it, people will go check it out, because it is a really good, both of these are really good movies, I should say, but American Fiction also. And these are the ones that are like available to watch right now. Oppenheimer and Barbie, obviously they already had their time. And then something like Killers of the Flower Moon was kind of already out, and it's on Apple now, so I don't really expect that to make big waves anymore. Something like The Zone of Interest was like fumbled really bad. Like, I saw a tweet the other day that was saying like, it's in select theaters now, but next weekend it's going wide. But Fandango hasn't, for me at least, it hasn't updated for next week, but it keeps showing like, well, in the month of March, like the week leading up to the Oscars on the 10th, it has like random showtimes. Like on one day it'll be like at 7, and then the next day it'll be at 4, or the next day it's at 1. It's like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Like, no clear release on this thing. If it does release wide this weekend, I'm seeing it, obviously. I've been wanting to see it for so long. I just finally saw Origin a couple days ago because they finally released that close to me. That's not up for any Oscars, but still, my point being, there's a couple movies where it seems like, man, maybe you guys could have had something if you just campaigned it well enough, if you released it wide enough too. It's weird how they only go like all in on like a couple. Like A24 like made a wide release for the Iron Claw, but their big campaign pushes were for like Zone of Interest and oh fuck, what was the other one? The other movie that is nominated from them. It's kind of weird that the Iron Claw, despite it having like a better release where people saw it, that didn't get any nominations. I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about awards. This is a box office show. Number 9 is Aquaman. Let's get back to Aquaman, making $2.82 million, adding to a domestic total of $118 million. So it's $22 million away from Shazam. For James Wan, it is $19 million away from The Conjuring 1. Worldwide, it is sitting at $412 million. So for the DC universe that is now dead, it is $243 million behind Justice League. Yeah, it is inching closer to what I proposed was maybe the best case scenario doubling point, which is $430 million. So it needs $18 million more to get there. I don't know if it even has that momentum. It's about to dip out of here. For James Wan, the next film that it needs to outgross is Aquaman, like we've talked about. So it needs $722 million till that end. There's just no way. I really don't have much more to say. It's like I said, it's about to dip. I've already talked about how it's such a shame, what happened here, blah blah blah. So bye-bye Aquaman, and let's say hello once again to number 10, which is Godzilla -1. It left for a bit, but it came back because it got re-released in black and white, and I don't think it made it too high on this one because number 1, I think people rarely see a re-release if it's something like, oh, it's Avengers Endgame again, but this time there's a post-credit scene that has unfinished VFX of the Hulk. It's a deleted scene. You know what I mean? Like something like that. And this one, just because it's in black and white, I don't think that's an incentive enough to get a lot of people back in, but it's enough to get back into the top 10, that's for sure. It made $2.6 million, adding to a domestic total of $55 million. Worldwide, it is sitting at $102 million. So it crossed over $100 million worldwide on a budget of $15 million, but apparently lower, which is pretty, that part is, we've talked about, unfair labor laws, blah, 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 and VFX artists, but that is still pretty damn good for this movie, I would assume, even though the director claimed that there was no talks on a sequel yet, but it seems like that would be a pretty obvious way to go, you know what I mean? Like, this is more popular, financially right now than like Shin Godzilla a couple years ago, so you'd think you want to go all in on something like this and getting that director back. Anyways, now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. Number 1, pretty easy, I think will be Argylle. And then number 2, call me crazy. And I feel like I made a prediction like this a couple weeks ago and it didn't really work out in my favor, but because the numbers are so low and because I can't rule this out, number 2 I think will be The Chosen season 4, episodes 1 to 3. But I can't rule it out. It's made numbers before. I can't rule this out. This. And then number 3 I think will be The Beekeeper. Number 4, Mean Girls, and number 5, Wonka. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.